Coolio from the Two Cool Bros is here to review every single episode from the wonderfully weird world of Gumball. Yes, they changed the title. It was the amazing world of Gumball, but now I guess Gumball's world isn't amazing, it's wonderfully weird. Yeah. But anyway, Gumball has a new season, so let's get right into reviewing these episodes. Episode 1 is called The Burger, and it is not the best start. The whole episode is basically Gumball and Darwin bumbling around from place to place, seeing what they can and cannot eat, and it turns out, hey, they can't really eat anything. It's a whole commentary about how unhealthy modern foods are. So Darwin's basically saying, Gumball, you can't eat this has trans fats, you can't eat this has too high sodium, this has too high sugar content. And then at the end, they go talk to Larry, and Larry shows them his boss who is in charge of this whole unhealthy food industry. And I feel like this ending part should have happened a lot sooner, because after they have like this little corny song about unhealthy eating and blah blah blah, they just do an ending joke with them looking at the burger, which is Larry's boss, and obviously the joke is they're gonna eat him. It's pretty obvious. I think the episode could have benefited from an ending chase scene, at the very end, like they're chasing the burger. But yeah, as it is, it's just a D-tier Gumball episode. It's the only Gumball episode out of this season that I feel like has bad pacing. So yeah, D-tier, and let's move on. Episode 2, The Assistant. This is a much better episode. It's basically a showcase of AI taking over. We see this in these modern Gumball episodes where it's a commentary about more modern societal problems, in this case AI. So Nicole is basically tired of doing everything around the house while her family just kind of bums around, and she makes this friend with an AI, and Nicole vents to the AI about her family, and the AI decides, hey Nicole, it would be better if you just didn't have a family. And then the AI goes and gets Nicole's family killed, or attempts to get Nicole's family killed. So yeah, I will say Anais is shown to be a little less competent and a little more lazy than she normally is shown. That's just done for the sake of the plot. I do really like the digital world art style, and yeah, overall it's just a very fun, very chaotic episode. I love the art style changes, and it is an A-tier episode, A-tier. So it's our first A-tier. Next up, we have The Distance, an episode about Gumball and Darwin needing to spend time apart, or rather commanded to spend time apart by their mother because they have this weird codependence on each other. It's obviously exaggerated for the sake of the plot. Gumball spends the majority of the episode in self-isolation, losing his mind because he can't be around Darwin, or at least he can't be in the same room as Darwin, and then he gets all jealous because he thinks that Darwin is hanging out with Banana Joe and Tobias, when in reality he was just asking them to help him make a spot for Gumball in his own room. So yeah, it's a bit entertaining to see Gumball descend into madness, but yeah, by Gumball standards, it's even more overly exaggerated than usual. It's okay, but I think it's a good C tier right here. The next episode is called The Thing. So the kids help Richard figure out what the thing is that Nicole wanted him to do. So Nicole isn't actually telling Richard what the thing is. She doesn't want to repeat herself. So Richard goes from place to place eating these different foods, because it turns out when Richard eats a food, he gets this memory of what the thing possibly could be, but every time he goes and checks with his wife keeps saying, no, that's not it, but remember the thing. So Anais, Darwin, Gumball try to help him, but they aren't able to get Richard to remember what the thing is. So eventually, the kids end up being stuck with Granny JoJo while Richard goes back to his wife and confesses that, hey, I don't remember the thing. But Nicole's like, you did remember, because it turns out what Nicole wanted was some time alone with her husband, without the kids, without Granny JoJo, just for them to chill and have a nice dinner. So it ends with a very funny scene with the kids suffering from Granny JoJo being a creep and wanting them to wash her feet and stuff, while the adults, Richard and Nicole, have a nice date together. So yeah, this is a B tier episode. It's good. Not amazing, but it is pretty solid. The next episode is called The Butts, and the whole episode is basically centered around Principal Brown being insecure about his butt because he doesn't have any hair on it. Apparently he's been wearing a wig over his butt to cover up the fact that it doesn't have any hair. So yeah, there's some decent commentary about body positivity in this episode. Aside from that, it's just a bunch of butt jokes, and there's like this twerking song at the very end. So yeah, I've seen worse, but by Gumball standards, this is pretty much the bottom of the barrel. So yeah, and Principal Brown is basically also twerking in front of children, so there's that. So I gotta deduct points for that. Yeah, this is an F tier episode. F tier, let's move on. The next on the docket is the traffic. The Wattersons must get Anais to Daisyland before the park closes for good. So basically, they have been meaning to take Anais to Daisyland for the longest time, or at least Nicole has been meaning to do so. However, they keep missing the opportunity, and now they really need to just go ahead and take her there before this place closes down for good. So they end up getting stuck in traffic. And during this whole traffic tomfoolery, they end up having all these traffic adventures, and Anais ends up having the ride of her life. So they don't end up actually making it to Daisyland in time, but Anais is like, oh, it's okay because we had this fun ride, this joyride of a lifetime. So it's just, it's cute. Anais feels like her family doesn't really care about spending time with her, so they want to prove her wrong. They want to actually be good parents, good brothers to her. And there's also this cute Gumball and Penny moment where Gumball thinks he sent a mean text message to Penny, when in reality it was just a mistake, and they correct it, and they just show how much they love each other. It's just a very cute, fun episode. The police get involved in a chase scene, and yeah, this is A tier. Let's move on. Next up, we have the astrological. Mr. Small makes an astrological prediction that Gumball and Penny aren't compatible with each other and that they will break up very soon. So Penny doesn't take Mr. Small's prediction seriously, but Gumball, he's the paranoid one, so he's going to take it very seriously, and he ends up hurting Penny by taking it so seriously. So Penny's like, you know what, if you're going to take it this seriously, maybe we aren't meant to be together. So yeah. Gumball ends up confronting Mr. Small. They have this weird astrological battle in the mindscape where Mr. Small basically talks about the cosmic order and why Gumball and Penny aren't meant to be together. But at the end of the day, it turns out, hey, the crystal that Mr. Small was getting these predictions from is just a hazardous drug-like material. It doesn't mean anything. All the predictions are wrong. So Mr. Small basically goes crazy and has to go into quarantine or something. And Penny forgives Gumball for, being a doofus and taking this too seriously. And they get back together. So it's a solid B tier episode. Next up, we have the cheerleader, where Gumball wants to get Richard on the cheerleading team at his school in order to end their family's generational trauma. So there's some very good commentary here about generational trauma and generational abuse. So basically, Richard has no confidence in himself because his parents, told him he was a piece of garbage, told him he couldn't accomplish anything, and their parents told him that you're a piece of garbage and that you can't accomplish anything, and then their parents told them you're a piece of garbage and you can't accomplish anything. So it's just a whole trend of family abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, and it all goes down to Richard. And Richard is trying to face his family's generational courses in order to finally be a cheerleader. Why Richard wants to be a cheerleader, I don't know. It's just meant to be weird, but this episode is pretty fun, It tackles a serious subject, which is generational trauma and abuse, and it shines some comedic light on it. Richard ends up being a good cheerleader. Mr. Small and Mr. Brown give him, their approval. And yeah, and then at the end, Granny JoJo tries to take credit for what Richard did, but Nicole's like, no, that's our Richard, not your Richard, which makes sense because Granny JoJo, talked down to Richard as a kid and made Richard not have all these insecurities about himself, so he doesn't get to take credit for Richard's accomplishment. Only Nicole and Richard's more quote-unquote immediate family gets to take credit for that. So yeah, overall, a B tier episode, a solid episode. Next up, we have our first S-tier episode, The Boring. Gumball and Darwin use Molly's time-halting powers because she's so boring to avoid an after-school beatdown by Tina. Now this is classic Gumball right here. So basically, Molly is so boring that her getting into a conversation with her literally brings time to a standstill, which Gumball and Darwin can take advantage of because they end up ticking off Tina by walking over the chalk or the artwork that she was writing down on the pavement. Then Tina's like, I'll beat you up after the school bell rings or whatever, the classic school bully stuff. And Gumball and Darwin repeatedly use Molly's power in order to play pranks, screw around with people before realizing, hey, we can use this to prepare to fight Tina. So they prepare to fight Tina, but they fail epically, and Tina ends up crushing them under her massive Tyrannosaurus foot. And Gumball makes this hilarious comment when Molly comes and talks to them, and they start freezing again, saying, "Is this our eternal punishment to be crushed under a giant foot?" Listening to Molly like that. That was hilarious. At the end, Gumball actually learns to listen. Darwin too. They learn to listen to people, to be more aware of their surroundings, and then Molly kind of dismisses them at the end, calling them boring, and that's a joke. But it's a very fun, very good episode, good moral, but it's just overall just very comedic. So this is definitely S tier. Next up, we have The Teacher. Gumball ends up going on a ride with Miss Simeon after suspecting her of stealing. So yeah, it's a whole Gumball Miss Simeon episode. So this episode is a very fun insight in Miss Simeon's character and Miss Simeon's life as she explains how important the role of a teacher is. She ends up, getting into all this shady business with some criminals, with that fingerprint guy criminal. She captures him. She ends up feuding with the school gym teacher, and Gumball just ends up in the middle of all this chaos. He calls the cops on her. He ends up regretting doing that when he sees how hard Miss Simeon's life really is, that she lives in this cave, that she can barely afford to make ends meet, but throughout all of that, she really is proud of being a teacher, and she actually likes changing minds and setting up the next generation. So we see in the original, Gumball series, Miss Simeon was first introduced as a villainous character, as an antagonist, as a jerk. But we see this softer side to her, and I really appreciate that. And then at the end, there's this funny scene where Gumball is running away from Miss Simeon because Miss Simeon is talking to him about, hey, these are all the glorious things that come with being a teacher, despite all the hardships, despite the low pay, despite not getting any love, despite not getting any respect. And Gumball's like, no, I'm good. I don't want any of that. I appreciate you, Miss Simeon, but I don't want any of that. I do not want to be a teacher. Very fun episode. This is S tier. And we are at the halfway point in this list, so I'd like to say, if you are enjoying the video so far, please leave a like, subscribe, tap that little bell notification, and if you enjoyed the rest of this video, then share it with a friend. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the video. The next episode is called The App, where Gumball and Darwin work together with the local hobo to try and stop an app causing everyone to experience brain rot. So this whole episode is basically Gumball's take on brain rot. The thing that happens when you're on your phone too much, you're scrolling too much, your dopamine receptors are absolutely fried, your dopamine receptors are basically dead, and you enter this zombie-like state. I'm exaggerating here, of course, but a zombie-like state where basically your focus is destroyed, your attention is destroyed, and yeah, this whole episode is about brain rot, the effects of brain rot, just told in the perspective of a zombie apocalypse basically happening. And yeah, it's a cool episode. Nothing too special, mostly bunch of zombie chaos. But I do like the joke where Gumball tells the hobo, you know what? You deserve everything that comes to your way. You going out of your way to try to help us is cool and all, but it doesn't begin to make up for everything you've done, because the hobo is actually the one who made the app in the first place and corrupted society in the first place. And then at the end, the parents end up going on the app and getting brain rot, so the kids are saved because the kids don't mix with the parents or whatever. It's a C tier episode. It's mid, but leaning towards good, but we'll say a C tier episode for this one. Next up, we have The Entrance. Gumball and Darwin become obsessed with making a big, grand entrance to Tobias's party. So basically they find this weird cologne that makes everyone smile and causes everything to be all weird and trippy. So it's a very chaotic episode, but it's not really that good. It's just Gumball and Doran kind of bumming around, talking about how they want to make this big entrance and then getting everybody hooked on this cologne, and the cologne takes over the whole town. And then there's this whole drug scene where it's very trippy and nothing really happens up until the ending, where Gumball and Doran end up making their big entrance at a jail cell because they're arrested for, causing so much chaos in the town. And Tobias ends up getting the short end of the stick because criminals end up coming to his house and destroying everything. And yeah, the ending was funny, but overall this is a pretty D tier episode. Nothing too special here. This is D, not even C. It's D. Next up, we have The Letter. Darwin wants to get a love letter he wrote to Carrie back before she sees it. So this is the first Darwin Carrie episode of this new season, and it's cute. It's pretty cute. So it turns out you should never tell someone from the underworld I love you, because it makes them go all crazy and want to eat your face, because people down in the underworld never hear I love you apparently, which is really depressing. You think there'd be some good places in the underworld, you think people wouldn't be that angry and that bitter and that tortured down there, but okay. If Carrie says so, I guess I just have to take her word for it. But yeah, there's some misunderstanding with Hector and yada yada. Gumball ends up getting possessed again, so there's actually a throwback to Gumball being possessed, so that's cool. And of course, Carrie and Darwin make up, and all the misunderstandings are cleared. So yeah, this is a C tier episode. It's not the best, but I mean, it's cute. It's a cute episode to just put on and watch. Next up, we have The Gut. Richard's gut becomes sentient and brilliant due to Anais' invention, and the gut ends up bonding with Anais, making Richard jealous. So yeah, that's basically the episode. It's Anais bonding with Richard's gut. Richard's gut is very gross, but I mean, gross out humor aside, this is actually a pretty solid episode. Like, it showcases the relationship between Richard and his daughter. The gut takes over Richard. They have to stop it. There's good writing in here because they set up in the beginning of this episode that Richard will eat any food that falls on the ground as long as he eats it within 5 seconds. So the 5-second rule, and that 5-second rule ends up causing them to actually win in the end. It's because Richard ends up eating something that, destroys the sentience of the gut or whatever. So yeah, it's just a fun father-daughter episode showing Richard and Anais' relationship. And this is a B tier. Next up, we have The Wrinkle. Anais starts aging prematurely due to the stress and pressure of looking out for the rest of her stupid family? Wow, okay. But to ease her worries, Anais' family try to do things that appeal to her. So Anais wants Darwin to get tougher. She thinks Darwin is too soft, but she wants him to get tougher. And Darwin ends up going on this whole adventure where to toughen him up, but he does end up still being a softie at the end. But I mean, I think it's impressive that he went on this whole obstacle course and montage and, survived it all. So I think that was successful, but it's not portrayed as successful by the show, so it's whatever. Anyway, Anais also wants Gumball to get a lawyer because Gumball is basically a criminal. He has a lot of criminal charges. The only reason he's not in the slammer is because he's a kid. But that doesn't end up working out. And then Anais wants to retire Nicole and Richard, but they end up just fighting because Richard, is a bum and doesn't have a job, and Nicole ends up calling him out on that. And yeah, so yeah. But Anais, she ends up aging even more and getting even more wrinkly. But they have this fun, cute song about just, not taking things so seriously. Just being chill, how family works. Anais manages to stop worrying so much, and in the end, she actually realized that she's been enabling her family by doing things for them. So she's like, no, I'm not gonna do things for you anymore, and you guys will be perfectly fine. So yeah, it's just a funny ending scene, and yeah, overall, The Wrinkle is an A tier episode. Next up, we have The Gourmet. Gumball tastes Mashami's gourmet mac and cheese, and he loves it so much that he wants to go to her house to try to get more of it. And of course, Gumball can only get more mac and cheese if he is fancy, if he proves that he's not a commoner, if he proves that he's not a peasant, because Masami has a very strict family, and this episode brings back the spotlight on Nicole's rivalry with Masami's mom. So Gumball tries his best to be fancy and to earn this mac and cheese, but it doesn't end up working out because Gumball can't control himself. So he has this cute moment with his mom where his mom's like, Gumball, you don't have to be like those fancy people. And then they have this other cute mother-son moment where Gumball basically and his mom sabotage Masami's mother's house and make it go haywire and everything. So they're just giggling in the window, being all mischievous. So it looks like we know where Gumball gets his mischievous side from. And then at the end, Masami's mom basically surrenders and orders some chicken nuggets. Doesn't surrender to Gumball and Nicole because they don't, they do this in secret, but she basically, stops thinking, that she's above chicken nuggets, above low-class food. And yeah, it's just a very fun episode. It's a fun episode. It's A tier. Next up, we have the pool, where Richard, Gumball, and Darwin try to get in the Robinsons' new pool during a brutal, skin-burning, organ-boiling heat wave. This is a very fun episode. It's just the usual shenanigans at first with, Richard, Gumball, and Darwin just trying to get inside this pool, asking Margaret if they can, and then they make a joke about Margaret being pure evil, and Mr. Robinson is laughing at it, like, oh man, I can't believe I married a monster. They really think that she was the better half? It's really good. And it turns out to be even more than just a fun episode, because Mr. Robinson, talks about how he has all these regrets, as a father. He wished he was a better father to Rocky. So Gumball, gets Rocky, and, they try to have this father-son moment where they bond and enjoy being in the pool together, but that doesn't happen because it turns out that Richard, Gumball, and Darwin ended up draining Mr. Robinson's pool in one of their schemes to get in it, and they're trying to fix it, and they can't fix it in time, and then they just all crash at the bottom of the concrete at the very end. So it's a very fun, sweet episode that just ends comedically. It's peak Gumball. This is an S tier episode. Next up, we have the portrait, where Nicole wants a new family portrait, but more and more family members keep trying to get in on it, and then things just spiral into chaos. So yeah, Nicole is just sick of the usual family portrait because they're not all smiling and they're not all in frame, and she's just trying to get a new one. But every time she tries to get a new one, a new family member knocks on the door talking about, hey, I want to get in on it. I heard y'all were doing a family picture because Richard spread the news. Good job, Richard, bringing all these other family members here. And anyway, so we get to see basically a big Watterson showcase. We see all these family members, and they try to do this picture. Richard's dad even returns, and it looks like he's trying to redeem himself, but he turns out he's still a scumbag. He just tries to get away from his parole officer, and he goes on the lam. So yeah, they end up taking the photo in police-related chaos, and they just end up just going back to the old one in the end. So overall, it's just a very chaotic family chaos. Here's the entire Watterson family episode. It's C tier, it's mid, it's okay, but, not the best. Next up, we have The Climb. Gumball has an incident where he loses his pants while rock wall climbing and is now afraid of it happening again, because this happened in the middle of a school day during gym class, and they all saw his pants come down and saw him in his underwear, creating a lot of shame and embarrassment for poor Gumball. So he doesn't want this to happen again. He never wants to climb the rock wall again, but he has to because it's a requirement for PE. So the whole episode revolves around him trying to face his fear. There's lots of silly stuff like Gumball's pants talking to him and blah, blah, blah. But in the end, he does it. He climbs the wall, but he does so by basically getting completely naked, or getting naked from, the groin down or whatever. I mean, his wiener is out, basically. Like, his dingling is showing. They just have a blurry image, they blur it out, on the actual show. But yeah, the implications that he doesn't have any underwear on. He's just naked. He's basically naked. So yeah, that honestly drags the episode down. Like, I get it's supposed to be this comedic thing, but like all of Gumball's friends and classmates just seeing him naked, and yeah, just very disturbing implications. You know, the gym teacher, she's still there, and you know, Gumball is only like 12 years old. So yeah, D tier episode, D tier. Next up, we have the Amadan. Gumball vows to wear a shell and partake in strange Fitzgerald traditions in order to help Penny get through a tense family birthday party with ease. So yeah, this is not that good of an episode. For one, Penny is very out of character. First of all, she lies to Gumball, because Gumball did not want nothing to do with this, okay? He did not want to come here if Penny's other family members were here, because he knows that there's always drama, that there's always problems, and that Penny's dad doesn't even like him that much. But Penny kind of lures him in here anyway with deception, and then, you know, she ends up tripping Gumball, you know, making Gumball basically make the party experience worse for everyone, because she, you know, does it to spite her family, more or less. So Penny definitely comes across as a bit out of character in this episode. There is a nice message at the end where everyone eventually accepting Penny for who she is. But overall, this is a pretty D tier episode. And it sucks because this is the last episode of the batch, so we're ending on a D tier. And in conclusion, the best episode of the wonderfully weird world of Gumball so far is the pool at the top of S tier. Then we also have the teacher and the boring at S tier. Then when it comes to the A tier, we have the assistant, then the Wrinkle, then the traffic, and then the gourmet. Then B tier, we have the thing, the gut, the cheerleader, and then the astrological. In C tier, we have the distance, the letter, the app, and then the portrait. In D tier, we have the admin, the entrance, the burger, and the climb. And then finally, in F tier, the worst episode so far of the wonderfully weird world of Gumball, we have the butts. But let me know what you think about these episodes. Do you agree with my tier list? Do you disagree with my tier list? Did you like some episodes that I didn't like? Did you dislike some episodes that I really liked? Let me know in the comment section below. Once again, like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you real soon in the next one. And yeah, peace out.